In this video, we're going to practice converting fractions to decimals and decimals to fractions. It's important to note this video deals with fractions. We are not going to be practicing simplifying our fractions. So our answers, we are not going to put those fractions in simplest terms. That's not what this video is practicing. This video is practicing creating those fractions. We will not be simplifying our answers. Just remember that when we get to creating our fractions. So first we'll start with fractions to decimals. So the easiest and quickest way to turn a fraction into a decimal is to divide the top number, which is our numerator, by the bottom number, which is our denominator. So if we have a fraction like 2 over 10, 2/10, that really means 2 divided by 10. Which would give us, if we plug that into our calculator, or maybe you know already by saying it as 2/10, that would give us 0.2, 2/10. So another example would be, maybe there's some that you already know. So if we had 1/2, a lot of you already know what 1/2 is as a decimal, but if you don't, you can do 1 divided by 2, and that would give you 0.5. Another one people might know already would be something like 3 over 4. We would do 3 divided by 4, and that would get us 0.75. I say you might already know that one because 3/4 or 3/4, we know 3/4 are worth 75 cents, so 3/4 is 0.75. Here are some other examples where you might not know the answer right off the top of your head, and so doing the actual division will help you. So the first one we're going to look at is 6 over 25. 6 over 25. So we're going to use our division. We're going to do 6 divided by 25, and that gets us 0.24 or 24 hundredths. Another example would be 15 over 60. I would do 15 divided by 60, and that gets me 0.25. Sometimes you don't get decimals that are only 2 place values. Sometimes you get some that go on longer. So 4 over 13 would be an example of that. If I do 4 divided by 13, I end up with 0.3076, and it keeps on going and going and going. We want to just stop at 2 place values usually. So we want to stop here. So I'll use my 7 to tell me what to do with that 0. Should I be rounding up or keeping it the same? That 7 tells me to round up. So my decimal in that case would be 0.31. So then we can switch over and worry about converting from decimals to fractions. So when we were doing fractions to decimals, we were dividing. So when we go from decimals to fractions, we can use multiplication to help us. We have actually a couple options when we go from decimals to fractions, so we'll explore both. All right, the first one we can look at is going to be if we wanted to multiply by 100 and then put that number over 100. So let's say our decimal is 0.63. I can multiply that by 100, which equals 63. And then I would just put that number over 100 to make a fraction. Another example of that would be 0.04. I would multiply that by 100, which gives me 4. And then I put a 100 as my denominator. So that fraction's an example of where I could simplify that, but that's not what we're practicing today. It's not in simplest form, but it is the fraction form of 4/100ths. Another example we can do would be 0.52. Multiply that by 100. That gets us 52. And then we put 100 as our denominator to create our fraction. Another option for decimal to fraction would be to use the number from your decimal as the numerator, and then use the place value of that number to determine the denominator. What does that mean? So remember, when we look at decimals, or any number, right, everything has a place value. So if I had this decimal, right, I would have the tenths place, then the hundredths place, then the thousandths place, then the 10,000ths place, right? So it keeps going. So we can look at what place value our number is in and then put that number as our denominator. So for example, 0.8. That 8 is in the tenths place, so I would make 10 my denominator. And then on top, I would just put 8 because that's my number that's there. Another example would be 0.41. We say this number as 41/100ths because it goes out to the hundredths place. So that means my denominator would be 100. What number do I put on top? 41. I'm just copying that over. One more example would be 0.396. What's the farthest place value we go out to? This 6 is in the thousandths place. So 1,000 would be our denominator. And then we just put our number on top. When I say we put our number on top, I mean the number that we see without the decimal point. So when we make our fractions, that decimal is gone. Now again, looking at some of these fractions, yes, they can be simplified way down, but we want to get them into fraction form first, and then you can worry about simplifying later.